यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर नागर यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर नागर यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर नागर यशोमति नंदन ब्रजवर नागर गोकुल रंजन कान्हा गोकुल रंजन कान्हा गोपी पराण धन मदन मनोहर गोपी पराण धन मदन मनोहर काल दमन विधाना काल दमन विधाना अमल हरि नाम अमिय विलासा अमल हरि नाम अमिय विलासा विपिन पुरंदर नवीन नगर बर विपिन पुरंदर नवीन नगर बर वंशीवदन सुवासा वंशीवदन सुवासा ब्रज जन पालन असुर कुल नाशन ब्रज जन पालन असुर कुल नाशन नंद गोधन रखवाला नंद गोधन रखवाला गोविंद माधव नवनीत तस्कर गोविंद माधव नवनीत तस्कर सुंदर नंद गोपाला सुंदर नंद गोपाला यमुना तट चर गोपी वसन हर यमुना तट चर गोपी वसन हर रास रसिक कृपमाया रास रसिक कृपमाया श्री राधा वल्लभ वृंदावन नटवर श्री राधा वल्लभ वृंदावन नटवर भक्ति विनोदाश्रय भक्ति विनोद आश्रय यशोमती नंदन ब्रजबर नागर गोकुल रंजन कान्हा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री श्री राधा गोकुलानंद की जय, श्री श्री पंचतत्व की जय, श्री श्री सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की जय, श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Shashunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today is the second part of the 2 lectures series on how to stop worrying and start living. Since I see many new faces today who were not there yesterday, what we can do is, some of you who were present can give the lecture for the first few minutes, which means I will ask you for points, the important points from yesterday's lecture on this topic. So those of you who were present, you may raise your hand and answer important points, just the bullet points, one point each. Yes. Which type, what is the spelling of that Hari? Okay, not H-U-R-R-Y. So H-A-R-I, Hari or Krishna, is the antidote for worry. So where there is Hari, there is no worry. In other words, if one is Krishna conscious, then we will always be happy and there will be no worry. Good, first point. What else? Who raised your hand? Who said? Yes. So explain in a sentence. You can give the bullet points. What is the main points of yesterday? Yes, so just the bullet point. What is it about faith? What is the relationship between faith and worry? Yes. So faith in Krishna, faith in the Supreme Lord is our shield, is our protection from anxiety, from worry, from fear. So the best antidote to fear or worry is faith, Shraddha, in our Krishna consciousness. Second important point. Third, each time a different devotee. So everyone gets, yes.
You should worry about spreading Krishna consciousness.
Yes, so we are not only into just avoiding worry. You know, sometimes in corporates they ask me to do this workshop on stress management. It's not a very interesting topic to talk on. Somehow we just say something and come away. And I tell them, look, managing stress, removing stress from your life is not the goal of your life. There are so many people who are free of stress, relatively speaking. But just to become free of stress is not the goal. That's not necessarily how you can be happy. You don't want only peace, you want happiness. Happiness is something much more than peace. So similarly with worry, what kind of worry do we want to avoid? Worrying for material things, unnecessary worry. Yes, unnecessary worry, worrying for material things, worrying for things we shouldn't be worrying about. As we discussed yesterday, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that a learned person, a pandita, is one who doesn't lament for that which is not worthy of lamenting for, lamentation. So everything in this world will come and it will go. Nothing will stay for long. So why should one lament about the inevitable, on the unavoidable? Yes? So therefore one need not worry about unnecessary things in the world. We have burdened our mind and our lives with unnecessary burdens and worries. So therefore, the goal of our life is to get rid of these worries by taking to Krishna consciousness. But when you take to Krishna consciousness, then you substitute the old worries with a new worry. What is that new worry? How to give this happiness to others. Because a devotee is not selfish. A devotee is not a miser. Who is a miser? A miser is one who has something valuable but doesn't want to share it with anyone. So similarly, the greatest wealth in this world is what? Dollar? Pound? Which is it? Krishna consciousness. That's the greatest wealth. So once you have that greatest wealth, don't you want to share it? If somebody has a lot of money, then they feel happy to share it with others, especially for the service of the Lord. So similarly, Krishna consciousness is our greatest wealth. All the other wealth of this world is temporary. It will come and go. But this wealth is eternal. So we want to share it with others. We don't want to simply keep it to ourselves. And there is a secret. Even from a material point of view, do you know the laws of punya and pap, the laws of sin and piety? According to the Shastra, keep aside the devotional service for the moment. Even a person who is not a devotee of the Lord, but is just living a life of piety, punya, such a person, if he or she shares the wealth that they have with others, they will get more by the laws of karma. Automatically. Just sharing what you have. But the more you grab and keep what you have, the more you lose. That's how it is. If your fist is tight, the flow will stop. If your fist is open, you keep, but the flow comes on the top and you keep sharing with everybody. So that applies even on the material platform. How much more so will it apply on this spiritual platform? So if we share our Krishna consciousness, which is the most priceless wealth we can ever have, then that will be the greatest service we can do to anyone. The problem is that people don't want to accept the greatest wealth. That is our worry. It's like, suppose you have a child in the house and you have a 100-pound note or a couple of 100-pound notes lying on the table. And the child doesn't know what the value of a 100-pound note is. For the child, it's just some paper that is meant to be torn up. And the child goes and starts, fiddling with it, and you get scared. Oh, he's going to tear up the notes. He's going to tear up the notes. You get worried because the child doesn't understand the value of those notes, but you understand the value. So you want to make him understand, look, this is money, don't tear it. And he's trying to figure out, what's money? What is all this? It's just fun, playing and tearing. The parent is worried, oh, now I should not leave money lying around because this child may tear it any time. So the devotees, their only anxiety in life is, why do people not get it? Why do people not accept Krishna consciousness? It's such a beautiful process. It can give you complete happiness in life. Then why don't they take it? So let us try our level best to give Krishna consciousness to others. And in the process of giving, there is worry because some people don't accept it. And even when they're trying to accept it, you have to deal with many issues. As I was mentioning yesterday, Srila Prabhupada would say that the yogis sitting in the Himalayas don't have any headaches. Because they're involved only in their salvation. They're sitting, doing their own thing, in solitude. They don't have to worry about other people's problems. But Prabhupada said, I have so many headaches. Because he was worried about spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world. So he had to worry about these new devotees, and they had their problems, and they had their challenges in their spiritual life. There were obstructions and obstacles from governments, from police, from various other sources, health challenges, so many challenges he had. So you see, in the beginning, when one comes to spiritual life, one comes with the idea that one wants to become free from one's misery. One wants to become peaceful. So it's okay. You tell people, yeah, you want to become peaceful, come here. We used to have a series of talks called No Yoga, No Peace, No Yoga, No Peace. You know? K-N-O-W Yoga, K-N-O-W Peace. N-O Yoga, N-O Peace. No yoga, no peace, no yoga, no peace. So we talk about peace, but actually in this world there is no peace. Whatever you may do, a peaceful situation is never possible. So we don't worry so much about peace, although we don't unnecessarily create disturbance. We try to avoid disturbance as much as possible. But we are meant for tasting the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And then we share it. So that is the worry that we have. Any other point from yesterday? Yes. Yes. So where does one get that faith from? That faith comes from those who have faith. Right? You want to buy, let's say, some electronic item, then you go to a shop that sells electronic items. You don't go to a grocer's shop. Right? You go to get something from where it is available. So faith, which is the most precious commodity, where is it available? It's available here, at the lotus feet of the Lord, in the company of the devotees who are faithful. So in any case, I also gave lots of stories yesterday, yes, about faith and about worry and so on. So let's go one step further and continue these points. You see, worry, fear, anxiety, they're all similar. Worry is also a kind of fear, you know. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9 Yogendras explain, Bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshatah syad ishadapetasya viparyayo asmritihi. Bhayam or fear comes because one turns one's back to the Supreme Lord. Just as even in broad daylight there can be darkness. Is that possible? Yeah, suppose you're out in the sun. Now it's nice and sunny outside. You go out into the bright sunshine. Can you have darkness? How many say yes? How many say no? Can be both ways, but can there be darkness?
In the form of shadow.
In the form of the shadow. So when you turn your back to the sun, what do you see in front of you? The darkness of the shadow. So even in the bright sunshine, you can have darkness. So similarly, even in the light of Krishna's mercy and love, you turn your back to Krishna, then you will have all sorts of unhappiness and misery and pain, suffering, anxiety, worry. So all we have to do is turn our face to Krishna. That is the idea. So when you come to Krishna consciousness, that is when real life begins. Yesterday we were speaking about stopping worrying. Now we're going to talk about start living. The other half. It's not enough to stop worrying. If you stop worrying and then do what? You'll worry that you're not worrying. Yes? There are people who, because you're so used to worrying, and you wonder, what's happened? There's no problems in my life for so many days. I haven't been worrying for so many days. Something is wrong. And one of our devotees is a psychologist. So he was saying that, he's thinking of starting a new term. I forget what term he mentioned. Anyway, he said the term is because there are people who don't worry and they're worried that they're not worrying. See, he called it, he just jokingly was calling it something. So we need something to worry about because that's our habit. We're so accustomed to worrying. You don't have something to worry, then you start worrying that you're not worrying. Shankaracharya had this famous verse, I think it's from Bhaja Govindam, where he says, Balyastavat kridasaktah, tarunastavat tarunisaktah, vriddhastavat chintasaktah, paropi brahmane kopina saktah. He says, when one is a child, one is attached to play. When one is in youth, one is attached to the opposite sex. When one is old, one is attached to worrying. So where and when is the time for the absolute truth? This is how childhood passes, that is how youth passes, this is how old age passes. The child is worried about when am I going to get to play, where are my toys, why can't I do this? In youth, we are worried about all the pleasures of life and when am I going to get this, why am I not getting that? In old age, we are worrying about so many things, including the whole world. So we're worrying. So where is the time for the absolute truth? That is the lamentation of the great Shankaracharya. So yes, we have to find time. Because this is the goal of life, Krishna consciousness. So when we actually come to Krishna consciousness, our real life begins. In the Srimad Bhagavatam we hear, Taravaha kimna jivanti, don't the trees breathe? They also give out oxygen, they take in carbon dioxide, they are breathing. We breathe the opposite. We breathe out carbon dioxide, we take in oxygen, but we are breathing. They are also living, we are also living. Bhastra kimna shvasantyuta. The bellows are also breathing, they take out, air in and out. The trees are living, the bellows are breathing air in and out. So we are also living, our lungs are also expanding and contracting and pumping air in and out. So does that mean that we are living? Is life merely a question of having a body which breathes and performing certain actions and being able to speak, etc.? No. So, Mother Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila, has a very interesting definition of what it means to live. Because we're talking about stop worrying and start living. So, okay, we stopped worrying about unnecessary things, and now we come to Krishna consciousness, and now we actually start living. So Kunti Maharani is talking about those categories of people who are considered dead. Sometimes the scriptures speak in a little, in a harsh way, But we shouldn't take offense at that. That is just meant for our welfare. She says, Nehayat karma dharmaya, na vairagya upakalpate, na tirthapada sevayai jivannapi mrito hisaha. For one person who simply believes in doing action, who simply working, but is not interested in performing any religious practices, is as good as dead even though living. Jivan api, even though he is living, mrito hisa, he is actually dead. The living dead. You're just living physically, but actually there is no life there. So if one is simply working without resorting to any religious practices, but the matter doesn't end there. She says if one is engaging in religious practices, but one has not developed a sense of renunciation or detachment from the world, then one is as good as dead even though living. Jivan napi mrito hisaha. So So there are many people who are ritualistically religious, they will do all the religious rituals, but they remain extremely attached to this world. So Mother Devahuti says they are also as good as dead, even though they are living. Finally, not if somebody is renounced. There are so many sadhus and sages who are very renounced. They live in the forest, they live in the Himalayas, they live in hermitages, etc. So they may be extremely renounced and detached from this world, but na tirthapada sevayai. If they are not engaging in service to the Supreme Lord, tirthapada, at whose lotus feet all the holy places reside, then that person is also dead even though living. So the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that one is truly living only if one is a devotee of the Lord, if one is constantly serving the Lord. This is the definition of life. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur adds one step further. And he says, Prana Cheja Shehetu Prachar. One who has life preaches, he spreads Krishna consciousness everywhere. So therefore, our life is to serve Krishna, to please Him, to hear and chant about Him, serve Him in so many ways, and to spread the message everywhere. It's not only about being selfishly free from worry. That's not really it. And on the platform of devotion, sometimes there may be so much anxiety. If you look at all the great devotees, now I'm going to do a bit of anti-preaching for devotional service. I'm going to discourage you from doing devotional service by telling you all the problems that great devotees have faced. Look at the Pandavas. Was their life a peaceful life? Just see what kind of tribulations they had to undergo. They had to be exiled into the forest for 12 years, 13 years. And then even in the forest they had unlimited anxiety. And then when they got the kingdom back, they had to fight a war in which all their relatives were killed. Very difficult life for the Pandavas. And they were persecuted by the Kauravas even when they were little boys. From that time on, their life knew only challenges and difficulties. But they never stopped being pure devotees of the Lord. Look at Prahlad's case. Prahlad had so many difficulties in his life. His own father tried to kill him in so many ways. But Prahlad's devotion and faith never wavered or slackened. On the contrary, his devotion just increased. Similarly, there are many other examples. Now, why does Krishna put his devotees into such fear, into such worry, into such adverse situations? To teach all of us how we should be when we face the challenges of life. When we encounter the challenges of life and we get worried about things, we should know this is the time to take shelter of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada used to say, one devotee asked him, when we are in great anxiety, Srila Prabhupada, what should we do? And Prabhupada said, sit down in one place and loudly chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So please remember this point. The next time you are in some anxiety, which will not be very far away, around the corner, rest assured, waiting at the door to enter into your life, the next time you are in some anxiety about something, sit down in one place, chant the names of Krishna loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant like this and you will feel the relief. You will actually feel like this burden of anxiety just automatically being lifted as if by magic. So the Lord puts His great devotees into difficulty to teach us how we should react or respond to challenging situations. Not that we should get so anxious and so worried that it disrupts our life and our consciousness. And as we look at the Brajabasis and the others, we see how they took shelter of Krishna in the most difficult situation. When Nanda Maharaj wanted to worship Indra, little Krishna came along and said, "No, my dear father, don't worship Indra. We should worship Govardhan Hill." And by his sweet words and his convincing logic, he managed to convince Nanda Maharaj and the elder Brajabasis that they should worship Govardhan instead of Indra. And when Indra heard about this, he became furious. And he unleashed such torrents of rain upon Vrindavan, the likes of which are seen only at the time of the destruction of the universe. And naturally the Brajabasis were suddenly shocked. One fine day you have these huge pillars of rain, not just drops of rain, but pillars of water falling from the clouds. Have you experienced a cloud burst? Do you know what a cloud burst is? A rain cloud holds a lot of water. And it just drips like you have your shower. And the water just comes out. But imagine if that little thing came out, or the whole thing just gushed onto you, what would happen? There's just a little example. Imagine if the cloud just burst and all the water that was in the cloud just suddenly fell down at one stage. That's what happens sometimes. It's called a cloud burst. That happened in Kedarnath in 2013, and that's why there was a huge deluge. You may have heard about it. It damaged many things, many holy places, many people died. So here was the mother of all cloudbursts. Everywhere there was a deluge, torrential rain. And the Brajabasis, they didn't know what to do. And they had only one shelter. Whenever there was anxiety, they would always remember Krishna. So they called out, "Krishna, Krishna Mahabhaga, Tvannatham Gokulam Prabho, Tratum Arhasi Devannaha Kupitad Bhakta Vatsala." They said, "O our Lord, O Bhakta Vatsala, one who is very affectionate to devotees, O Krishna, please, O Lord of Gokul, you are the protector of the residents of Gokul. The king of the Devas, Indra, is very angry. Please protect us from the wrath of Indra." The Brajabasis understood because they had stopped the worship of Indra and started the worship of Govardhan. Indra was angry. And this was his way of spiting the Brajabasis. So the Brajabasis, what did they do? They took shelter of Krishna. And then Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill very effortlessly and gave them complete protection. So this pastime is a very popular and well-known pastime, and many lessons we can learn from it. The short lesson to learn is that when we are in difficulty, when we are worrying and we are anxious about something, just take shelter of Krishna. And everything will be fine. There was this little story on email which somebody sent me many years ago. He said sometimes we go to Krishna and we tell him, referring to some particular huge problem in our life which appears like thunder, and we tell him, "Krishna," we complain, "look at the thunder that's there in my life." Meaning we tell Krishna, "Look, I have so many problems, look at this problem or that problem." So instead of going to Krishna and complaining about the thunder and telling him look how strong and powerful my thunder is, or how big the problems are in my life, instead of going to that self-pity, one should go to that thunder, one should go to the problems or the challenges of life and say, "My dear thunder, just see how powerful my Krishna is." So because I am with Krishna, then I have no further worries in life. Yesterday I gave the example of a little child going with a parent. Then the child has no fear from the bullies on the street. When the child is alone, there's always anxiety, there's always fear, worry. But when the child is with the parent, no further worry. So similarly, when we take shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, then we are completely happy. Anywhere else will be anxiety. There is a great devotee poet called King Kulashekar. He has written a magnificent poem called Mukunda Mala Stotra. Srila Prabhupada used to sometimes sing some verses from Mukunda Mala Stotra. And he also began a translation and commentary on this book, on this work. Unfortunately, he could not complete it. He did a few verses. And then he had to leave the project, and one of his disciples later then continued the work. So, the same King Kulashekar, he says in one of his poems, he compares himself to a bird that is sitting on the pole of a flag that is on a ship that is out at sea. Now, when the ship is out at sea, imagine this bird that's sitting there. And it's already in a place of shelter. It's secure because it's got some place to perch on. And then the bird thinks, oh, why am I sitting here, confined here to this little boat and this flagpole? Let me venture out into the big, nice sea, and I will get the experience of the sea, and there's so much out there in the sea. And the bird flies and flies and flies everywhere, but doesn't have a place to land, no place to perch. And eventually it comes back to the perch because he can't keep on flying indefinitely, gets tired. So Kulashekar says, my dear Lord, I am like that bird who abandoned the shelter of your lotus feet, which is like that flagpole on that ship, and have wandered out into the ocean of material existence. But then I've realized I have nowhere else to go. So I have come back to your lotus feet. Please give me shelter. So the devotee is in this consciousness, that the devotee doesn't want to leave the shelter of Krishna at any cost. In Vrindavan we see, not only were the devotees worried about themselves, but that worry about themselves was insignificant compared to the worry they had for Krishna. Because Krishna was playing the role of an ordinary child, a village boy in Vrindavan. So therefore they were thinking of Krishna not as God, but as their little boy. The cowherd boys were thinking of Krishna as their friend. Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj and the elder Gopas and Gopis were thinking of Krishna as like their son. So when they were thinking of Krishna like this, if Krishna went into some dangerous situation, they were extremely anxious and worried. And every day there was an asura. There was a demon who came in. If you look at the life of Vrindavan during Krishna's time, there was no peace. In case you thought that you would get peace by coming to Krishna consciousness, a little reality check. Even in Vrindavan, there was no peace. Every day there was some demon who came. In the Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 10, Shukadev Goswami has mentioned only a few of the demons, the important ones, the prominent ones. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, every day there were demons, sometimes more than one demon. It was almost like Krishna couldn't digest his food without killing a few demons, and then they had to be there. And imagine the condition of the Brajabasis who would get so anxious every time they heard of a demon coming. And this started from the very beginning. Putana came in when Krishna was only a few days old. And from that time on, there was no end to their anxiety. They were always worried about Krishna. But in that worry, they experienced transcendental ecstasy. It is not ordinary worry. So after some years had elapsed, a few years had elapsed, the Brajabasis called a conference. Now Putana came, Shakatasura came, Trinavarta came, all these demons came and created havoc here, and they posed such a danger to Krishna. We can't stay here any longer, so let's go. So they made a huge change in their life. The whole village moved from Gokul and they traveled all the way along the Yamuna northwards. And then at a certain point they crossed the Yamuna. And again for a long distance they came southwards. In those days they didn't have bridges. So they came again southward. So they came to a place that was just across the river from where Gokul was. But to reach that place they had to go all the way up and down. And they carried all their life's belongings in ox carts, in bullock carts, and went. Just because they were worried about Krishna and his safety. They settled there in the place called Chatikara, which is near modern day the town of Vrindavan. So they lived there for some time, for some years. There too there were problems. Demons didn't leave trying to kill Krishna. Of course, they ended up being killed. And then from there, they went to Nandagram. In this way, the Brajabasis took such major decisions in their life, the whole village moving from place to place, just out of worry for Krishna. So this worry is transcendental. Srila Prabhupada used to say that in our movement, we have many devotees who render many types of services. They may be pujaris, or they may be cooks in the kitchen, they may be preachers, they may be book distributors, they may be managers who are managing the temple and so on. And often the devotees have to undergo anxiety. But Srila Prabhupada said, this anxiety is spiritual anxiety. And this is actually the process of purification for the devotee. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, has prayed to Krishna actually, that my dear Krishna, the anxieties and worries that I experience in your devotional service, they are my ecstasies. So the next time you're worried in the discharge of your devotional service to Krishna, know that that is your ecstasy. Be satisfied with that ecstasy. As I said yesterday, it's not that we unnecessarily, because of our negligence and inefficiency and lack of application of mind, create trouble for ourselves, create unnecessary anxieties for ourselves, and then say, this is my ecstasy. No. We have to do our best, and then to Krishna leave the rest. This is a formula that I have. Will you remember this sutra, this formula? The formula is, do your best and to Krishna leave the rest. You remember this? Do your best and to Krishna leave the rest. It rhymes. So will you repeat after me? Do your best and to Krishna leave the rest. Bas. That is the formula for complete freedom from worry. To Krishna leave the rest doesn't mean that you become lazy. This issue is particularly for students. When they come, they're anxious about their exams and so on. So leaving the results of your exams to Krishna doesn't mean you don't study. You study hard, you do your preparation, then leave everything to Krishna. And the gopis of Vrindavan, they don't mind anything so long as Krishna is pleased. One time, you see, Krishna had a headache. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Krishna also worries. He has so many worries. He's worried about all of us. All these conditioned souls, they are in the material world. They are my children. They are my parts and parcels. And they have forgotten me. And they speak all kinds of nonsense that God doesn't exist and this and that. And no. Imagine if you are a parent and your child says, you don't exist. I don't have any parents. How will the parents feel? Yeah? So imagine what Krishna feels. There's no shortage of atheists, yes, who speak about God delusions and so on and so forth. So there are so many people who are averse to the Lord, but the Lord still loves them. And He's worried, when will they come back? When will they come back to me? But He can't force them. So He sends His devotees into the world. He gives His scriptures to the world. He's there as Paramatma, the super soul in the heart of everyone. So He's trying His level best to encourage everyone to come onto the good path and take to the shelter of His feet. But we don't. So He's very worried about us. So sometimes Krishna does have headaches. And through this headache, Krishna wanted to demonstrate the glory of the love of the Brajabasis and especially the gopis of Vrindavan for Him. So one time Narad Muni, the great devotee saint, came to Krishna, and Krishna looked a little disturbed. So, my Lord, what happens? What happened? You seem a little anxious. So he said, I have a headache, splitting headache. And so he said, what is the solution? Can I get a doctor? He said, no, we've tried all these Kavirajas, all the doctors, all the medicines, everything's been tried. But there's no solution. They've tried CT scans and MRIs and all these things. Nothing seems to be working. So what is the solution, my Lord? There is one answer. Only one way I can become free from this headache. What is that? I want the dust from the feet of my devotees to be smeared on my head. So Narad Muni, will you give me the dust from your feet so I can place it on my head? And Narad Muni was shocked. He said, dust from my feet, my Lord, on your head? Actually, it should be the other way around. I should take the dust from your feet and place it on my head. But you are asking me to do the opposite. How can I do such a thing? So Narad Muni was hesitant. He couldn't do it. Then he said, okay, now you go and talk to the Brajabasis, Narad Muni. And especially, remember, you talk to the gopis. So Narad Muni went to the gopis. Oh, Narad Muni, welcome. So what is the news? Have you seen Krishna? So yes, I saw Krishna. So what is the news? We hope that he's well. No, actually he's not well. He has a headache. Really? So then what's the solution? Has he tried some medicine? Yeah, he's tried everything. Nothing seems to work. But he has only one solution, one remedy. What is that? He wants the dust from the lotus feet of his devotees to smear on his head. And if that is done, then will his headache be removed? He said, yes. So then they all immediately bent down and they started getting the dust from the feet and filling buckets. He said, take as much dust from our feet as you like. And Narad Muni was aghast. And he said, don't you know that you can go to hell for this? You know, even if you touch some devotee or anybody with your feet, you know, it's an offense. So we touch the body's feet to our head and we apologize and say, we are sorry, we have touched our feet to your body. And we don't even touch any holy things with our feet, like the kartals or mridangas, or anything that has any sanctity, anything connected to the Lord. We don't touch it with our feet because they are holy things. So we're very careful. Actually, the Vedic culture is that you don't even like to touch your feet to the earth because she's Mother Earth. She's also a devotee of the Lord. So usually we are supposed to pray to Mother Earth after we have remembered Krishna and prayed to Krishna the moment you wake up. Then we are supposed to pray to Mother Earth, please forgive me. I am placing my feet on you now. Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam. Oh dear consort of Lord Vishnu, my obeisances to you. So Kshamasvamam, please forgive me because I have to place my feet, because after all we can't live without placing our feet on the ground. So we beg her mercy and forgiveness that I'm touching my feet to the ground, so please forgive me for this. So here, even for our life in this world, we are very careful how we use our feet. But here the gopis were willing to give buckets of the dust of their feet for relieving Krishna's headache. So Narad Muni said, aren't you aware that you can go to hell for this? So the gopis said, we don't mind living in hell eternally if our giving the dust from our feet will relieve Krishna of his headache even for one moment. What to speak of if it permanently relieves his headache? So then Narad Muni understood why Krishna had the headache in the first place. Just to teach him, to show him this mood of the Brajabasis. Where the Brajabasis are not concerned about their own happiness and distress, they don't go to stress management workshops. They're not into that. They only want to please Krishna at any cost. So it doesn't matter what happens to me, so long as Krishna is pleased. Of course, we cannot artificially imitate the gopis. As yesterday someone asked a question that should we pray to Lord Krishna to give us calamities because Kunti Maharani has prayed. So it is not advisable to do that for us because we don't have the faith that matches that prayer. Because when you pray to Krishna for calamities, Krishna usually fulfills the desires of his devotees. And then these calamities will come in life. And when they come into our life, we may not have the strength and the faith to withstand these calamities. So better not to ask that, better to ask only for devotion. So similarly, we need not imitate the gopis like this, but we should keep the spirit in mind. The spirit is that we should try to serve Krishna only for his pleasure. And it doesn't matter whether we undergo some anxiety in the process. At the same time, we have to take care of our own body and mind and soul to see that unnecessary anxieties and worries are not created. This is real life. Life is not meant for merely trying to falsely enjoy this world. Life is not meant for merely trying to be peaceful in this world. Life is meant to be for the unalloyed, unmotivated, uninterrupted service to Krishna. And if in the process of doing that there is some worry, there is some anxiety, so be it. This is real life. So stop worrying, start worrying. Stop worrying about the wrong things, start worrying about the right things. Prabhupada one time told his devotees, my only complaint against you is that you are not sufficiently afraid of Maya. You think because now you have become a devotee, you are immune from Maya. No. Maya will be still very strong. And she will attract you, she will tempt you, she will disturb you in so many ways. So always do your sadhana very carefully, he said. So also we should follow these instructions of Srila Prabhupada and make our life full of worry, transcendental worry. And that worry will give us enormous happiness, enormous satisfaction, transcendental anxiety. Hare Krishna. I don't want to put you in too much worry about the prasadam that is to come. Any questions, by the way? Yes.
You say that it's in our way that we should be really respectful to Mother Earth.
The mic. Can you speak into the mic?
Maharaj, you say that we should be really respectful to Mother Earth.
Yes.
Well, it is in our sastras. Why is it people in India are the most disrespectful to the Mother Earth by spitting and doing all sorts of things?
Good question. This is also one of my numerous worries. It needs a lot of education. And not just little things, but the holy places are the dirtiest. And they just go and throw everything there. So what we do is, whenever I take yatras out to holy places, we do our kathas and kirtans and going and seeing darshan of different places. But at least once during the yatra, we reserve a few hours just for cleaning a particular place. We gather all the rubbish that different people have left behind, cigarette packets and pan masala, polythene pouches and polythene bags and all sorts of things that people keep. When we went to Hampi, we climbed up to the birthplace of Hanuman on the top of the hill. It's a steep climb. And even there we found loads of rubbish. So all the devotees, there were 200 devotees, all just cleaning, and everyone in ecstasy. Everyone dirtying their hands and everything, but they didn't mind. This is seva to the dham. So there is need for a lot of education for generating awareness.
From yesterday's class, can I ask a question
Yes,
about
sure.
it? You said we should be listening to devotional songs or something,
Yes.
To improve our Krishna consciousness. Can it be any devotional song, or does it have to be particular ones?
Well, devotional songs that are sung by bona fide devotees, not by anyone and everyone. There are many devotional songs that are sung by non-devotees. Non-devotees can be of various kinds. One will be those who are simply commercially minded. They cut these discs or whatever, they're not devotees of the Lord. They're just, but because it has a market, they sell. So that such songs don't have any potency. Rather, we get the consciousness of the person who's singing. Then there are also others who may sing, but they have, let's say they are Mayavadis, or their goal is to merge into the Lord rather than to serve the Lord. So that consciousness would also affect us. So one should hear devotional songs sung by bona fide devotees. That will be very purifying for us.
Thank you for
Okay.
clarification. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
If I remember correctly, you mentioned that we should keep our faith in those who have faith. Therefore, the power of association is very strong. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where, for example, you have to relocate for work, or you have to go to university for prolonged periods of time, and there may necessarily be temples or congregations or sanghas or namahatas, and you find yourself having to be alone and trying to carry out your Krishna conscious activities. What would you suggest to keep your sadhana strong and yourself strong in your bhakti, along with chanting attentively and reading?
Keep getting yourself charged from time to time. So where you are obliged to be in a situation where you don't have devotee association, from time to time, take a break, go and get association at the nearest place that's available, and then come back. Just like you have your cell phone and you charge it from time to time. So we also have to charge our spiritual batteries from time to time. And generally for a phone, you have to charge it maybe once in 2 days or once in a day. But if you use it very extensively, then you'll have to charge it very often. So similarly, if your atmosphere in which you are is so disturbing and it's so contaminating, then you need more recharging. So then you have to go more frequently to the association of devotees. Thankfully now, because of technology has so many problems, but there are few good things also. You can get association through technology nowadays. So you can hear lectures, you can have darshan of the deities, you can hear kirtans, you can even talk to devotees on various forums of through the computer or the phone. So keep in touch with devotees like that. And keep your devotional practices very strong. Your reading, chanting, hearing. Then we will remain inspired and happy. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So, all right. Thank you very much. And I hope and pray that all of us can become free from unnecessary worry and anxiety, and that we can try to become appropriately worried about how to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.